Good evening and welcome once again to another program of Issues in the News, where we discuss the important events that would have taken place in Guyana in recent times. I can't say a week because we have been away for some time now. I want to welcome all of you to this program. I want to welcome our viewers who are joining us on television from region number 5 and region number 6. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. To our listeners who are joining us on Freedom Radio from Georgetown, Rob Street, Georgetown, welcome to another program of Issues in the News. And most importantly, to the tens of thousands of you who are joining us on Facebook Live right across the length and breadth of Guyana, the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Asia, and beyond. Welcome. Welcome to another program of Issues in the News. I see you're already on, and I see many comments. I want to thank you very much for your patience. I know that I have not been on the program for several weeks now, largely due to the elections campaign prior to September the 1st, and then after September the 1st, I decided to wait until the government settles in before I resume my engagements with you. I read on a regular basis all of your sentiments. I read all your requests for me to resume the program, and we are here now. I could have been here last week, but as you know, I was overseas on government business. So once again, thank you very much for your patience, thank you for your understanding, and thank you for your tremendous, unwavering, and strenuous support that you have extended to this program over the past decades and, of course, in recent times. Sanita Lal, Dave Gir, Penny Bascom, Mahendra Prasad, Nordine Khan, George Sitaram, and all of you, welcome. I am back. We are back, and we will continue this important discourse over the next few weeks, months, and years. So, although it may be a little belated, permit me to thank all supporters, members, leaders, well-wishers, and in particular, the electorate of Guyana for voting resoundingly for the People's Progressive Party, Civic, and for returning that party to another term in government, to continue the transformational work which we commenced or recommenced in August 2020. I want to congratulate His Excellency President Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali on his second term in office. I want to congratulate all my colleagues, members of cabinet who were reappointed, and I want to congratulate the new ones who were appointed for the first time. I wish the cabinet and I wish the government of Guyana all the best going forward, and hopefully we are able to deliver on all the promises we have made once again, so that we are able to persuade you come 2030 or 2031 that we deserve another term in office. So I'm happy that I've gotten that out of the way. We are now ready to proceed with the program. So as many of you may know or may have known, hearings in the Smart City Solutions Holding Inc. and Guyana, the arbitration proceedings in relation to the parking meter or parking meters project that are being conducted at the International Center for Settlement of Investment Dispute, ICSID. The hearings into those proceedings commenced on Monday, September the 29th, and concluded on Saturday, October the 4th, at the International Arbitration Center of Paris. Yours truly led Guyana's delegation at those hearings. The hearings included the testimony of several witnesses, fact witnesses, as well as expert witnesses from both sides. It included the examination in chief of these witnesses, as well as the evidence adduced from them through cross-examination. After that process was concluded, then both sides were invited to make their closing arguments. Of course, both sides presented their respective line of witnesses. And upon the conclusion of the adducement of evidence, the tribunal then invited the legal team from both sides to present their closing arguments. That was done Saturday, and the tribunal has reserved its decision for a date to be announced. Of course, the parties will be informed in due course of that date, and that date obviously will be made public so that the public continues to be updated on this important matter. Just for background information, you will recall that during 2016, the Georgetown Mayor and City Council signed this controversial parking meter contract. The APNU AFC was the government of the day, and widespread protest actions erupted in Georgetown. As a result, the project was suspended, and eventually the investor, Smart City Solutions, terminated their operations in Guyana and then filed proceedings at this ICSID arbitration seeking compensation against the state of Guyana in the sum of 100 million US dollars. So that is what we are defending. It's an action, or rather a contract, executed while the APNU AFC was in government by a city council of Georgetown, over which they enjoyed an overwhelming majority at the time. So we continue, and the taxpayers of Guyana continue to clean up the mess left by the APNU AFC government and their underlings. Well, the most sensational news that have gripped Guyana is the indictment that has been laid against Azruddin Mohammed and Nazar Mohammed. The details of that 11-count indictment are very much in the public domain, and there is no need, therefore, for me to regurgitate those details on this program. No one ought to be surprised that these indictments were laid. They were long in the pipeline. The OFAC sanctions sent the first signal, but internally, work was ongoing. The next step is for the government of the United States of America to request of the government of Guyana the extradition of the two persons who are in Guyana and who are the subject of the indictment. This process, which will be embarked upon, is a legal one, and it's contained in an extradition framework between the government of the United States and the government of Guyana, or rather, the state of the United States and the sovereign Republic of Guyana. The framework is captured in two main instruments: a treaty which dates back to 1924 between the United Kingdom and the United States, and a piece of legislation known as the Fugitive Offenders Act, which was amended as recently as 2024. Extradition between Guyana, now Guyana, and the United States is not of recent vintage. As I said, it dates back to over a century ago, long before the nation state of Guyana was born. When we were a colony of the United Kingdom, it existed in the form of the Fugitive Offenders Act of 1881. It was an applied act of the United Kingdom's Parliament that applied directly to Guyana because we were a colony of Great Britain. And that's how the colonial legal system worked. And then it was enhanced by a treaty executed between Great Britain and the United States of America in 1924. That's almost exactly 100 years ago. So you have an 1881 legislation and a 1924 treaty. So you're speaking about 150 years of extradition relationship between what is now Guyana and the United States of America. I say that because I see all manner of misinformation and misleading information being published in the press. And I will try to address some of those issues as we proceed. In its current construct, the process, as I said earlier, begins with a request from the government of the United States to the government of Guyana for the extradition of the persons who are within the territorial jurisdiction of Guyana to the U.S. Once that request is made, a process which is outlined both, in the Fugitive Offenders Act is triggered, and a series of legal steps have to be followed, all of which are outlined in the legislation. The types of offenses for which extradition exists are contained in the treaty dating back to 1924. So as I said, this is not a new process. And Guyana, as an independent country, would have done dozens of extraditions to the United States and dozens to other countries as well. Just this year, we did one to the US and one to Canada as a result of requests made by the government of the US and the government of Canada. So we did two in the year 2025. And we have, I think, two ongoing right now in relation to other territories. So there is nothing new or novel about extradition and extradition processes. Both that we did this year, the subjects, they went to Canada and they went to the US, as far as I recall, the subjects consented to the extradition. So we didn't have any long process in the court. And these were not high-profile persons, so the public would not have been aware. There was no publicity of these extradition requests and consequent processes that ensued, which resulted in the successful extradition of the subject persons to the requesting states, in this case, Canada. In the two cases I'm referring to, Canada and the US. In Guyana's independent history at least, I know of no request for extradition that has been refused by any government of Guyana. As I said, we have a long history of cooperating with the US on these matters. And the relationship is one based upon mutuality and reciprocity. In other words, the US also has a long history in cooperating with Guyana on matters of mutual criminal assistance and extradition. So it is a relationship that has evolved and has matured and is quite harmonious and diligent and efficient and has so developed over the years. Guyana has made it very clear that it is ready, willing, and the most able to diligently discharge its legal duties and obligations under the current extradition framework that exists with the United States of America in relation to this matter. And we remain committed to that course. At this point in time, we are awaiting the request. Once the request is received, then the requisite legal process will unfold in accordance with the procedure set out in the law. Against that backdrop, and in those circumstances, it is obviously nonsensical for anyone to contend that these processes or this process is being motivated by some political agenda, is inspired by some political incentive, or is in any manner whatsoever tainted by politics or some other irrelevant consideration. all of you, or most of you, would have read the particulars detailed in the indictment in relation to the 11 counts that are alleged against the two subject persons. And you would quickly realize that they span a period that goes back to 2007. What that means is that this process commenced long before the PPP got into office. In fact, it spanned two governments of Guyana and two governments of the United States. Different governments of the United States and different governments of Guyana. I think the last activity that forms the subject of a count dates to 2024. So the period under review for the purpose of the charges as they are set out in the indictment is between 2017 and 2024. For most of that period, by their own pronouncement, the Mohammeds, by their own pronouncements, were close to the PPP. How is it now that the PPP has some narrative and the PPP is somehow involved in some process that can be described as political persecution? One has to be delusional to entertain that type of thinking. To conceive that the PPP has the ability to influence the mighty Department of Justice of the United States of America and the accompanying law enforcement agencies of the U.S. to carry out political agendas of the PPP, to think that the PPP is able to persuade those mighty organizations to carry out its political agenda, that must be the product of a special mind. Who else would conceive something that is so outrageous? So that is what you're dealing with here. But let me stop short and don't say more, because I will, as Attorney General, I will have to play a role in the process going forward. But I just want to assure that there is no irrelevant, no irrelevant or ill motive in any form or fashion that is tainting or that has tainted this process. Let me see. I'm looking at your comments. Oh, the last point I want to make is that membership in the National Assembly of Guyana and any other attendant post that one may hold in that regard confers no type of legal immunity against prosecution or charge, or let me put it the other way, charge or prosecution of any criminal offense under the laws of Guyana or the laws of the United States of America. Because I also see some line of argument being peddled about that if persons assume seats in the parliament or becomes a particular office holder within the parliamentary structure, somehow that will defeat any intended criminal legal processes, or will cloak one with immunity, or cloak that person with immunity. Those are fictions. The law doesn't confer any type of legal coverage, of immunization of any form against the institution of criminal charges and prosecutions therefore. So I hope that that is very clear. By now you also would have heard that Guyana has managed to secure from the Council of Legal Education a law school to be constructed here in Guyana, which will form part of the Council's current complement of law schools, adding to the law school in Bahamas, the law school in Trinidad, and the law school in Jamaica. This is a significant accomplishment for Guyana. And Guyana has been pursuing this objective since 1995, when it was first proposed at a heads of government meeting by President Dr. Cherry Jagan, and put before the Council of Legal Education by Guyana's Attorney General at the time, the late Mr. Bernard de Santos. So this dream of establishing a law school in Guyana has been in the pipeline since 1995, 3 decades. And we have managed, and it has been on the agenda for 3 decades. When we took office in 2020, His Excellency the President, Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali, at one of our cabinet meetings, and as part of the government's quest to make Guyana an education destination of the Caribbean, one of the initiatives with which I was tasked was to go to the council and negotiate the conclusion of a decision pending 35 years now to establish a law school in Guyana that would be run under the authority, supervision, and auspices of the Council of Legal Education. And that I was able to do with the help of some outstanding persons who are part of that council, from Guyana and from outside of Guyana. Kamal Ramkaran, President of the Bar, President of the Guyana Bar Association, he sits on the council. Terry Usti has sat on the council before and is also sitting on the council as, I believe, Vice President of the Bar. You had Chancellor Acting Yonette Cummings. You had before her Acting Chancellor Carl Singh. You had um, different members of the Bar Council attending these meetings. And then we always had support from other territories in the region. But we became more focused and more dedicated in pursuing this objective when I received the mandate from President Ali to do so. And we are now extraordinarily close to bringing this dream to reality, as we are doing with so many other dreams. You saw us the other night, and I'm sure you may have been part of the celebration as we celebrated the commemoration of the Bharat Jagdeo Demerara River Bridge. And I'll speak about that a little later. And the honoring of Vice President Jagdeo appropriately with that simple gesture. It's a deserving one. The 8 acres of land that has been kindly allocated to the initiative of the law school has already, has already been identified, obviously, drawn and shown on a surveyor's plan, and the clearing of dense vegetation and forestation on that 8 acre of land is almost completed. Within the next few days, I will share with you on Facebook some photographs. I had them before when I showed you all the bushes in the background, and we are going back 2 weeks or 3 weeks hence to show you the progress that we have made in clearing the land. The architectural drawings have already been done and actually have been approved as part of the approval process by the Council of Legal Education. Remember, it's their school. They will be running it. It will just be located in Guyana, built by Guyana, and students from all over the Caribbean will come to attend the law school the same way that students from the rest of the Caribbean go to Bahamas, Wooding Law School, and Norman Manley in Jamaica. So it's a regional institution. But of course, we take great pride in having that type of institution within our country. And obviously, this will bring investments to Guyana. It will bring people from all over the world. It will enhance our reputation and resume as an education destination. And you have heard our government articulate its vision in this regard. We are building an educational institution at New Amsterdam that will train medical personnel as well. And there is a plan to build here in Guyana a regional institute for the training of teachers for the Caribbean. But my colleagues who hold responsibilities in those areas will speak more about those plans. I don't want to trespass on their ministerial mandate. So the law school project will proceed with every convenient speed, and hopefully in the shortest possible time we will be able to open the doors of the law school. Justice Arif Bulkan, who has recently been appointed to sit as a judge of the Caribbean Court of Justice, will be sworn in as a judge of that court in Guyana and will take his oath of office before President Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali on October the 16th at the office of the President. It is the tradition that judges of that court takes the oath of office in the jurisdiction from which they emanate. So Justice Volcan is a Guyanese, and we are proud of him, and I have expressed my congratulations to him when he was appointed, and he will take the oath of office in the country of his birth and before the head of state of the country of his birth, as is provided for in the relevant statutory instruments. Another issue that has raised some public concern is the Constitutional Reform Commission. Now, the Constitution Reform Commission, as all of you may know, consists of 10 members of the government, the government, and the parliamentary opposition in the National Assembly. 5 from the government and 5 from, if I am to follow the letter and spirit of the Act, 5 coming from the APNU AFC, I think 4 from the APNU AFC, and 1, I believe, from the other party in the parliament at the time. Now, when the election campaign began, a decision was taken unanimously that the commission will not stop its work because it has a full-time chairman, but members will be excused who have political commitments, and that is 50% right away of the commission. And that decision was taken unanimously by members of the commission. I saw great criticisms being made. But how can you sit when you are not in, when you have political responsibilities on a daily basis, a nightly basis, that take you away from Georgetown invariably and take you into different parts of the country, which make it impossible for you to meet and do anything constructive. So it is for those reasons that the commission decided that it will pause its meetings until the elections have been concluded. Now that elections have been concluded, we are faced with a different type of challenge. As I said, the act was drafted for that particular parliamentary configuration that existed at the time. And that act was drafted, as I said, was passed unanimously, and it was the product of a select committee. But it was really felt at the time, and we drew from the previous act. And that, I believe that's where the notion came from, that we must maintain the composition of the parties in parliament, rather than say 5 from government and 5 from opposition. At that time, we named the political party. and now you have a different configuration, which, in keeping with the spirit of the act, because and the spirit of the principle that led to the enactment of that legislation, is that we wanted 5 members of the government and 5 from the opposition. And the 5 from the opposition must come from the opposition. But you have a new configuration there now, or you're likely to have a new configuration there now, with this new political party being in. AFC is no longer there. So adjustments have already been made to a draft bill. And as soon as Parliament resumes, of course, it has to receive the imprimatur of Cabinet. That bill will have to be considered by the National Assembly. I think I see one member of the commission has already resigned, following the same trend of thought that I have expressed here. So, I want to express some views on Crystal Fisher against the Attorney General and GCOM. As you may recall, this is the case filed by the Forward Movement of Guyana. That's the name of the party. Forward Movement, FMG. These fly-by-night parties, they come and they disappear. So it's difficult to keep track. But FMG filed legal proceedings on the eve of the September 1st elections, making some outrageous claims and allegations against GCOM. You are fully aware of what those specious and ridiculous claims were. In short, this Fisher person resides in Lethem in geographic district number 9 or electoral district number 9. Both are applicable. And would like to vote for FMG in Region 9, but MFG decides that they will not contest Region 9. And then MFG, FGM, FGM, I'm corrected, then FGM turns around and sues GCOM for not putting FGM on the ballot paper in Region 9. It is the most asinine form of logic I have ever experienced in recent times. As I said to one of the courts, it's as if you want to go to Rising Star Turf Club to bet on a horse. Let us say the horse is Jenny. Or rather, let's say the horse is Amanza. You turn up at Rising Star Turf Club to bet on horse Amanza. But when you turn up, horse Amanza is not running at that turf club. Horse Amanza decides that she will only run at Port Moran Turf Club. But you don't go to Port Moran, you can't go to Port Moran Turf Club because they don't permit you there. You have to bet, if you want to bet, you have to bet at Rising Star. And you are now upset. You now gone and sue the managers and organizers of Rising Stars Sports Turf Club and the organizers of the horse race because your horse is not running there. And your horse was free to do so, but decides not to. And you are now complaining that your right to support that horse has been taken away from you. Not that the horse has decided to abandon you and run at a different place where you can go to. I don't know how else to put it. I told the court just that. And the case was thrown out with $1 million costs to the Attorney General and $1 million costs, I think, to the GCOM. It was thrown out in the High Court. And an appeal was filed. So it means that they didn't learn anything. So the entire process in the High Court fell on deaf ears. All the submissions fell on deaf ears. The judgment of the court, clearly written, many pages long, were completely ignored, and they run to the Court of Appeal. At the Court of Appeal, the situation was even made worse, because you have 3 judges there now, and experienced judges, judges that have heard political cases of this type many times, in particular during the 2020 election debacle. You had Chief Justice George, who was acting Chancellor. You had Justice of Appeal Rishi Prasad and Justice of Appeal Naresh Hardanan, 3 experienced judges in this area of the law. And they couldn't answer sensibly any of the questions that the court was asking. They can't present any anyhow. In the end, the appeal was dismissed, and they have $2 more million costs to pay to each respondent. So Miss Crystal Fisher, I don't know who this person is. The person never attended court. At least I didn't see the person attending court. But this poor person is saddled with, I think, $4 million in costs now, which has to be paid during the month of November. And we are, at least speaking for the Attorney General, I can't speak for GCOM, we will be pursuing these costs. We will be pursuing these costs. And I'm happy that the court is exercising its cost awarding powers appropriately. It's years I've been asking for high costs when the court processes are being abused and legal frivolities and trivialities are packaged as legal proceedings, wasting judicial time and resources and wasting the time of lawyers on the other side. I've been arguing for this regime of costs for a long time now, and I'm happy that we are getting to the place where we should be. The sad thing, though, is that I've heard members of the party, this FGM party, expressing great disappointment and disquiet over the ruling of the Court of Appeal. So they have not learned still. I don't know what else you need to do. rather than express some degree of contrition and move on. I saw some blistering criticisms against the court and the judiciary for the approach taken. You want the court and the judiciary to give effect to the nonsensical utterances that you make in the court and you scribe on paper? Thank God people of this ilk and mentality are nowhere close to government, either in the judicial arm or in the executive arm. One seat in parliament, and we will be able to demonstrate to the populace your mentality. And perhaps that's the highest you should go. People of that mentality. And I say so with the greatest of respect. You see, you get an opportunity to demonstrate to the public from a different vantage point the mentality of these people. When they are in the parliament, they use political coverage. They use ethnicity. They use all types of sentiments to disguise the ignorance. And they say anything and it passes because people give them political coverage. You know, they belong to a particular party that people support in bloc. So the unadulterated ignorance is past, it's excused because the veneer of politics covers it. So they say the most ridiculous things and people accept it because it comes from their political party. But when you move them out and you put them in a different scenario, then you see the same equivalence and hope people are making the analogy. You heard how ridiculous the arguments were? This person is not contesting the elections. You know, in Guyana you have 10 elections, 10 geographic elections. In the 10 geographic regions. I'm not talking about the RDC. One day I'll sit down and explain this thing. The 65 members of the National Assembly come from 10 geographic elections that are being held. 25 of those seats come from the 10 geographic regions, and 40 comes from votes again from those 10 regions. But there's a different method of calculating. But all the seats come from the 10 regions. You cannot get a seat anywhere unless you contest in that region. You can't contest the elections. Nobody can vote for you, in that constituency unless you are on that ballot paper. So, I will have to do a more prolonged presentation when I have more time to explain how the political system works. And then you may be able to understand what the argument that these people were advancing and how outrageous, I can't find another word, the arguments were. So let me see if I see the debate is continuing on the extradition issues. Well, if I may go back to that issue, when we were speaking about it, the answer, which many people apparently believed, if one is to go by the number of votes that these people got, they said that we were fabricating this thing. The PPP was, and they continue to say so. Although the grand jury has accepted the indictment. So I don't understand the level of delusion that is pervading in this society. When we first said this thing, they said it's a fiction, that we concocted and fabricated this thing, and that this whole plot was hatched, I don't know, perhaps at Freedom House. And today, look at where we are. And we have a lot of actions now that will unfold in the next couple of days and weeks. Anyhow, my operator is signaling to me that we have reached program time now. I want to thank you very much for spending the past hour with me. I think we have done a good job now hitting our back. And we will continue to build on the tempo. Next Tuesday, I will return and we will continue this discourse. Hopefully I have an update on these matters that we have discussed today. But more importantly, certainly I will have a lot to say on some other matters which have gone but are important enough for us to revisit and for us to discuss so that we clarify whatever ambiguities and whatever doubts exist on these matters. I always say I try as far as possible to make this program educational. I will admit it has a heavy political content, and that is by design. But I also try to do an admixture of politics and law and, information that is important for us to understand the realities of the society in which we live and in which we operate and function. So thank you very much once again, and please enjoy the rest of tonight. Take care, and I will see you again next Tuesday as we resume issues in the news. Thank you, take care, and may God bless you.